Kill them all! Kill them all! Kill them all! Soon every human will be ass up in their graves!
No, it isn't possible. He's mastered the sacred energy.
Yu Yu Hakusho is a kick-ass shonen anime about one Yusuke Urameshi, a juvenile delinquent who becomes a detective for Japanese baby Jesus after he gives his life saving a kid unnecessarily from an accident and gets brought back to life. He's best friends with his former schoolyard rival, also pals around with a demon fox thief and a three-eyed demon swordsman, as well as, the Japanese not Grim Reaper, aka this cutie with the blonde hair, and his girlfriend not girlfriend is way too good for him, but she loves his trifling ass anyway, and is a major force in him becoming not so trifling. But enough of all that crap. This tall drink of water right here is Shinobu Sensui. He's convicted, precise, 7 minds for the price of 1, and a true mastermind. And he's my focus for my one villainous scene. Big shout out to Nando V Movies for issuing this challenge, as well as everyone who's already contributed to the One Villainous Scene playlist. Check it out if you haven't done so already. It's some real dope shit in there. Not seeing a lot of anime though.
That's racist!
Anyway, enter Shinobu Sensui, a tall dark mofo with a bejeweled forehead, a sick fighting style, and a planet's worth of conviction. The goal of he and his crew are simple enough. Destroy the barrier between the human and demon worlds to allow demons great and small to all pour over. Once on our side, the human world will inevitably crumble at the hands of all the crazies and the uglies. Like all good villains, Sensui has his reasons, but they're not what you might think. See, while Sensui is planning the unthinkable, his motivations aren't out of a desire to cause great destruction simply for destruction's sake. Sensui has conviction of the wazoo, and he's actually a former spirit detective himself, one who acted with a sense of pure, uncut justice. He was a real clean-cut warrior of the light, fighting the eternal fight against the demonic darkness.
You've come to me like countless before you with selfish and spiteful souls. And just like them, you've been judged.
His universe was cut and dry, black and white. Demons were evil, so he had to destroy them.
There's no room for gray, and gray is just what he got. And that leads us to our actual villainous scene. Keep everything I've said in mind. Sensui is a pure black and white hero. His fatal flaw is his inability to deal with complex challenges to his worldview. It was a pretty typical mission, slightly higher stakes than the usual. Itsuki and Sensui are sent to go handle this portal that's been opened between the human and demon world. It's a running theme with this show. There's always somebody who wants to open a portal or destroy the barrier for some reason, okay? It just keeps it happening. Sensui and Itsuki get to the baddie's hideout and start dispatching with the outside guards. Sensui heads in first, and when he bursts down the door, he is met with something that will change his life forever. He bears witness to the feast of human vices. In here, we have some of the most powerful and corrupt humans engaging in what can only be described as the most pleasurable debauchery and torture known to humankind.
These privileged humans were toying with the demons they'd ensnared, torturing them with no motivation other than their own twisted pleasure. Sensui had sworn his life to protecting his race from demons. But here, humans were enacting cruelties 1,000 times worse than anything he'd seen from a demon. Black and white blurred, flipped upside down. His mind wasn't big enough to hold the change.
These humans are engaging in mass torture of these innocent creatures. The truth is, the portal was open to allow the demons to space to come over so they could be captured, toyed with, tortured, and killed. Sensui wasn't just disgusted with what he saw. He wasn't just outraged. He had a complete break with sanity and reality. He completely went off and took the life of every single human at that feast. By the time Itsuki made it into the main compound, Sensui was standing in a pool of blood, his limbs and face drenched with it, dripping with it.
We're late, Itsuki. There weren't any humans when I came through the door. Not a single soul.
In my description, I described Sensui as 7 minds for the price of 1, and that's not an exaggeration. When Sensui flipped out, not only was he unable to deal with what he saw, he also wasn't able to deal with what he did in response, and formed an entirely new personality to deal with this terrible thing he just did. This split personality would be named Kazuya, and he would come out in the future whenever Sensui had to do something that was too disgusting for him to live with or rationalize. Kazuya does make an appearance in the show proper, facing off with Yusuke during their showdown. He's the one with the gun for a hand who likes to torture insects. Can't wait to see him at the next party. Another notable entry on this list is Minoru, the orator. He's the one with the power of the silver tongue, who can persuade anyone to follow his cause. But it all starts here, in this room, where Sensui witnesses the most disgusting act that he's ever seen, being carried out by the hands of the very people he has been tasked with protecting. The biggest reason why I love this scene so much is because it's not your typical bad guy who used to be good story. Spirit Detective Sensui and Mastermind who wants to kill all the humans Sensui, they're really the same person. The values that he held dear back then, he still holds now. His reason for doing what he does is the same as when he was a spirit detective. He even says during the final showdown, he doesn't want to destroy the world. To quote Sensui himself,
"I like flowers and trees, insects and animals. The only thing I hate is all human beings."
Extreme? Yes, obviously. But it's consistent. It's who he is. And that's often the case with people in real life. Yeah, there are times where we go from life period to life period and have a drastic change in everything we value. But usually it's more subtle than that. Usually it's only a slight change in perspective, while our core remains the same. That's definitely true for me. In my adult life, I've changed my views on religion and politics to a pretty reasonable extent. But those are just the fine details. Who I am, the things that I value the most, have stayed pretty consistent for most of my life. That's because who I am at the core has not changed. Same is true for Sensui. His morals didn't change. His desire to make the world better didn't change. All that shifted was his worldview. In addition to being the result of Sensui's shifting worldview, it's also the product of a person who lives their life by strict extremes. Someone who doesn't allow for nuance. Someone who takes things too seriously.
Maybe Sensui was too dedicated to his cause, too hard a worker. He gave himself entirely to the purging of evil. Then he came to question the sanctity of the human race itself. And now he wants the life of every human as atonement for their collective sins.
It's brilliant, it's beautiful, and it's actually kind of tragic, because I can't help but think about real people like this. Folks whose hearts are in the right place, but because of their strict worldview and their dedication to that worldview, they don't allow new information in. And oftentimes, once they're challenged, there's a violent pushback. But when they're doing that, they're just being who they've always been. Just as Sensui is who he's always been. And that's my one villainous scene. Thank y'all for watching and listening. If y'all are feeling this, let me know, because I got a bunch of villains that I'm really feeling, and I might just be inclined to make similar videos on them. But until then, thank y'all for watching and listening. I'm Animaine, and I'll talk to y'all later. Deuces.